Greetings and welcome back to Dashcams. This is going to be video 5 alpha. This is an expanded review and demonstration of a particular program called Registrator Viewer. I wanted to bring this up because not every dashcam has good review software. This is actually a community-based project, very similar to other open source community-based projects, that is focused on car DVRs, car dash cams. The two big winners here are Ambarella chipset based and Allwinner chipset based, because when it comes down to it, every dash cam is going to have some type of video processor. Just like you have 100 different PC vendors out there who make computers, it's really all about the chassis. In the end, there's only a handful of actual producers of CPUs, and those drive the technology on which the motherboards and all the peripherals are based. So just like with computers, there's only a few actual manufacturers of the core components, then there are a few major assemblers, and then there's about 100 retailers. It's kind of the same thing with dash cams. And because of that, the developers of Registrator Viewer, and it is free for download, are able to focus on supporting chipsets instead of trying to support entire product lines. Whereas the software from the vendor is going to be specific to their model, this is going to be a more generalized reader. And what's really nice about this, and I'll go ahead and give a demonstration first off of the primary software, say for the 0801. This is a high-def camera, has GPS capability, GPS logger. This actually dumps on the card. I guess we should first start by reviewing really how these things save their GPS data. Typically a GPS logger is going to record the data in a certain file structure, and it's going to drop that GPS log file in a certain place. So the particular reseller I had for this was for the 0801 that I use every day is ePrance. They sell a large portion of the available types, the chassis, and the configurations of dashcams out there, but there are many different resellers that have similar offerings. So this is what's created on the SD card. I went ahead and dumped this into a hard drive, but you see first off DCIM, that's all your video files, and this is a forward-facing camera, one lens only. Then you have a folder here for GPS. These are all your GPS log files. And this is, it saves them as a pure text file. And you can see here, it's a bunch of gobbledygook. But it gives you a little bit more detail to see that these are particular tracks at a particular time, and it's showing you, basically north by west, and timestamps it. So it's going to use that data plus the video file to then actually create a track that you can then render between a map and the video file to get a good view. And that's what Registrar Viewer is really intended for, is to be able to rebuild the trip with the video plus the GPS data. And we'll see that in a second. So just like you remember from the Garmin, it did not have a GPS log file. In fact, I just pulled a straight GPS file from it, and this is the folder structure. It only gave you an option of pictures and videos. There were no hidden folders. I'm not even going to bother really turning it on. But just suffice it to say that it doesn't have anything else. So GPS data is actually encoded into the video files themselves as metadata. And you do have samples of that in some of your higher end cameras. That's why I mentioned that in the videos. But in your medium price to lower price that have GPS, they're going to go the more common route, which is to actually have a GPS log file separate from the video stream. And I'll give you an example of that here in a moment. The Garmin does not play well with Registrar Viewer because Registrar Viewer does not know how to interpret the metadata within the video file, so it's not going to reconstruct the GPS track. That's why you have to use the Garmin player in order to be able to pull out the GPS track plus any of the G-sensor data. Very similar to the X3000s, the X3000, X6000, and the R310, if you recall. So we have two instances of Registrar Viewer, and the first one is an Ambarella-based chipset. That's the 0801. So this is a sampling of Ambarella, and the second instance I have is Allwinner. Now, in a lot of Allwinner, we'll cover that here in the structure of what it does, the file structure on the SD itself. So Ambarella, at least for the 0801, remember it's breaking down between video files, GPS files, and it also dumps a player, which is handy, but it's a very, very basic player. Allwinner, on the other hand, actually will record their files, and they'll preempt it with the Allwinner. So it's just like you saw in the Ambarella, it preempts the name AMB. That's a dead giveaway for any Ambarella-based camera, that it's driven by an Ambarella. So AMB 01 through whatever. Whereas, if we look at the F90G, this is an Allwinner based, and you notice that the file stamp is a little bit different. It's not going by series of file, it's actually giving you a date time stamp. So here's the date, 9/28/2014, and hours, minutes, seconds. And it also appends an A versus a B, because in the F90G, remember it's a two-camera system, it's a DVR, so camera A is the front-facing camera, camera B is the back-facing camera. That's pretty typical you're going to find in a lot of these dual-camera DVRs. If you had more cameras, it would probably append it as 1, 2, 3, A, B, C. It's a little bit more advanced than the S3000 because it has a G sensor. It does have a lock folder, so it will record in the event of an accident. It'll automatically lock and save that file. Sorry for the flicker. It's just what this thing does, this stupid TV. So anyways, we look at here, and notice the name of the structure of the name here, because we're going to go over here and look at the 3000. Again, these are all just ripped straight from the card and dumped onto a hard drive. See, we still have channel A and channel B, front camera. And you notice here that the names are rendered as AW, then the date stamp and the time, and appended with an A. So that's an indication, you know, whether it has an AW or not, that it's probably an Allwinner based camera. And it's important because you need to know what chipset that camera uses in order to use Registrar Viewer as your software. So go ahead and giving it, it's also sometimes called the Datacam player, but Registrar Viewer is the main name of it. And this is oftentimes bundled, tailored a little bit. And you'll notice the interface. What have we got? Over here we've got our different axes of speed. And we'll just go ahead and start playing one of these. Go find us a good road video. And one thing that's nice that a Registrar Viewer does is it actually notices a series of videos. All these videos are like 1 minute, 2 minute. And once it syncs up with the GPS data, it actually rebuilds our tracking and gives us a nice little guide point to tell us where we are. Other players may have a pin to show the beginning, a pin the end, and maybe some type of indicator in the middle. In this case, it's actually following our GPS track, and it's giving us a rendering of our speed, odometer, so miles, estimated miles traveled. Because it is using the GPS data, it's rendering our heading and also our GPS data, our G-sensor data. So right here, this is indicating our change in latitude, longitude. This is indicating our speed. Our I forgot what this was, but anyways, so you can see there's a lot of data being shown here at this point. We're getting, it can actually try altitude, but it's showing bearing, it's showing our speed, it's showing where we are in the mile count on this track relative to where I'm moving. So it's giving us a real concise kind of, this is why I mentioned it was kind of busy, because it's giving us a lot of detail. Now you can turn that off. You know, you can come here in your profile and you can tell it my camera is video only. Well, you just have a basic player, you can use media player for that. The important thing is here is we can reconstruct based upon the GPS data and the G-sensor data that's stored in that log file, you know, what's going on during the trip. And the fact that this is a generic player is very nice, because if you don't have any native player software, as long as it's on a supported chipset, as long as you have the log file, and this is what I'm going to show you, is when you're exporting, just like we did with the X3000 sample, we did the same thing. I just want to show you for the Ambarella. It took it about 30 minutes. I gave it a 32 gig sample from a USB disk drive, and portable disk drive, and it took about 30 minutes to totally render to say, hey, it actually found the GPS log, and so it actually gives us total trip, average miles per hour, average file size 2 gigs, 5 gigs of that total trip. You know, like here, it gave us video sample 15 through 45 and rendered it as a single trip, because that was an hour-and-a-half trip across town in a lot of traffic, 33.7 miles traveled in an hour and a half, so you can figure it was a lot of traffic. And that's, like I said, that's what it does. It first tries to group. You can ungroup these files, or you can manually group them together. It's best to try to keep the native formats like you saw in the folder structures. Just dump the contents of the disk. Now we're going to go ahead and look here at a sample from the Allwinner base chip. This is the F90G, and it's doing the same thing. But you see what I did here is I pointed it to a folder on the desktop, and I kept the map file, that's the GPS data, and the video file. Then they're typically date timestamped together. There's also I have a sample here of the rear-facing camera, the B channel, but that's not keyed to GPS. GPS is going to be key to this, but you can always, with Registrator Viewer, you can link that GPS file with the backwards-facing camera. So if you need to reconstruct a journey, you can do that very easily. This is, and remember, the Allwinners, just like the Ambarella, you know, it's dumping into a given folder, but that the Allwinners give it a channel and a B channel, or a channel 1, channel 2, whatever you want to say. So that's just one thing to be mindful of when you're looking at this. This is the front view, this is the back view. This natively does not show up in the same folder, but some Allwinners do. So that's an important indicator here. In video 6, we're going to cover a Allwinner based camera that actually dumps everything into a common folder. So it's really for nicety that they're giving you a separate folder, but they don't have to. The important thing to note here is what the Allwinner is doing. Our GPS track, our A channel, and our B channel. Let's go ahead and shut that down. I just want to show you this, that if you give it the native format, it will find the GPS files. It should find them by themselves. It'll recognize it as an Ambarella or as an Allwinner or another common chipset, and it'll rebuild your tracks and group them together automatically. So the guys who designed this really did a good job. I'm really impressed. Plus, you know, we can have our map rendering, we can have our video, and we get to reconstruct all of the essential data that was stored on our GPS logger, G-sensor log, and be able to reconstruct speed, mileage, everything. Our entire trip can be reconstructed. So this sample is 2 files, and it's really just reconstructing to show you that if in the event that I need to reconstruct just a particular segment, all I need is the essential files, but you got to follow that native file structure. In this case, I've got 2 video files. I've got a grand total of 1 mile of travel, about 15 miles an hour average speed from the forward-facing camera of the F90G, rendered in 1080p. So sorry about that. And what's nice is it's showing us, you know, as we're traveling, it does reconstruct the G-sensor data on this. I'm not pointing this towards the F90's native card because I didn't want to do that. It would take too long. But here it's interesting. It shows that we're stopped, and then it shows a track of what our speed is over time. So that's kind of cool. And it's just reproducing that here as a real-time display and reconstructing our direction, our heading. So it's really nice. Unfortunately, this is not an integrator. It's purely a display. So if you want to integrate, say, this display in with this video or this display in with this, you're going to need to do some type of a screen capture, segment out, create separate video files, and then you'll have to use some type of a linear editor to then bring those back into the display. If that so just to kind of cover a little bit why you might want to reconstruct that data using a program like this, using the reader and having to go all through those steps, is let's say you have some kind of an accident, you're going to court, and you need to produce some kind of a visual aid to show, you know, it's okay to have the video, it's okay to have all this data, but unless you put it in a format that's easy for people to digest and see, it's not really useful. That's why I wanted to mention this camera, which I use every day. It's the 0801. There's lots of reviews. It's very, very popular. And it's popular for this main reason. This is just a playing sample. This is a video file by itself. And one thing you'll notice immediately is we have, of course, our date timestamp, but we have a few other things. This is a video overlay, and I've mentioned this before. Burned into the video stream itself is our GPS data. So this is not part of a GPS log. This is actually an artifact built into the video stream itself. So we have our north heading by our west heading, the same information that's in that GPS log, and we have a computation of our our average speed of travel. Now, it doesn't have an indicator, of course, of showing our direction, but then again, that's not necessary. You can get that data, like I said, with the native player after the fact, or you can use something like Registrator Viewer to reconstruct that. But that's what's nice about this is a very easy, handy function, and that's kind of rare. Most of your GPS logging cameras will not create an overlay. They'll, of course, create an overlay for date timestamp, but to actually get a speed indicator and a GPS indicator or even a direction indicator is a little bit more rare. So like in your GS series, the DoD series cameras that you see out there, they oftentimes have a function. If it has GPS enabled, it will actually be able to put a speed indicator on there. They may actually be able to display your GPS information, very similar to this. Now, I don't remember if they're an Ambarella base. I think some of them are not. This is an Ambarella base, but that's not indicative of an Ambarella chipset. That's just indicative that the Ambarella has the ability to put an overlay and to put this information on there. So I just want to share that with you. Is, that's the difference, and that's probably the reason why you might want to look for a camera that has an overlay. For me, it was important, so it really narrowed the field as to what I was going to get. I wanted 1080p, and I wanted GPS, and I wanted to be able to display it on the screen. Burn it into the video file as a permanent record. So I hope that this all helps you in understanding why a player like Registrator Viewer will oftentimes be useful to you in the event that you don't have native software to play back, or in the event that in your video file you don't have the ability to put an overlay on that shows the data as you want to capture it.